privilege. I appreciate you for allowing me to come in.
Oh, nice, nice. Well,
Yeah.
we let's talk, because the thing is that normally I don't have men coming in the story, because I think I do invite you know people to freely talk about their story, but sometimes men, they kind of like push back and be like, I don't want to put my story out there, I don't want to talk about this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being courageous, you know what I'm saying, and coming into this live with me. And I want you to like just talk freely, and just, I know you have a story to tell. Yes. So I'm assuming you're busy. Of course, you're always a busy person. And again, like I said before, I appreciate you coming in on the live. And everyone that I invite, my first question will always be, how was your upbringing?
Okay. Well, I think I shared briefly over the weekend, and
Right.
how I grew up, and okay, so first is my dad. My dad growing up is a sergeant.
Right.
23 years he retired from as a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is maximum security at the maximum security prison.
Right.
So both of them had strong backgrounds in security and just overall structure.
Right.
So it was just strong structure in the home.
And a lot of discipline, I imagine.
A lot of discipline. If you did something wrong, and so it was a strong upbringing. So I'm not saying, I would never say that my parents didn't show me love, but it was their way of love, their version of showing me love.
Right.
But just a lot of structure.
Yes.
So if you did something wrong, you punished for it. And sometimes I felt like I was being punished for things that they never talked to me about. So it really made me regress, I guess, and kind of hold things inside, because it was always like, don't talk back, that type of relationship.
Right.
It's trying to relate to someone who's very strong in their ways, and what I say go, and that type of structure.
Right.
So I grew up in that type of structure, and a lot of times I couldn't really speak my mind and say exactly how I felt to my parents, and definitely not to my father. It's the don't talk back, what I say goes, that type of mindset. It's like the older generation.
Right.
So we respected our parents, and so I think growing up that way, I kind of held a lot of things inside that I really wanted to tell them over the years, but I never said it because it was considered to be disrespectful.
Right.
In that type of structure home. So I used to write a lot. I used to write a lot on, a lot of letters and stuff. If I had to say something to someone, I would write a letter. I wouldn't verbally say it. I would just write it down and send them letters and stuff like that.
Right.
And that was my way of communicating. And through that type of structure in the home, I didn't feel like I was loved, but I didn't feel like I was being loved.
Right.
I guess, if I could say it that way.
Yeah.
So a lot of my outlets and how I dealt with handling how I expressed myself was through music. I got into DJing and turntables and stuff like that, and that was my form of expression. So I found outlets to express myself those ways.
Right.
So I guess I would say, I don't know. I think I held in a lot of things because I grew up with someone that was the same way. My dad he held in a lot of things, and I guess I kind of picked up that same way from him. And I used to see him angry a lot, and when he would get mad about things, he would explode about it.
Right.
Because that was his way of expressing himself, and so I kind of thought that was the way to do things.
Right.
So the structure in my home was very strong. Very just organized.
So did you ever have like sit-downs with your father and your mom, and
no,
like no sit-downs, like
no sit-downs? It was more like what I say go. You know, it was that type, do as I say, those type of things.
Right.
And then growing up that way and down south, it's like you just follow what they tell you to do. And you just don't disrespect or talk back. But then I learned over the years that, you know, I learned something different. I learned a different way over the years because now I'm a father. I got 3 boys and a daughter, my first daughter.
Right.
So I don't know. I kind of held a lot of things inside, and then, you know, we talked about this. You know, growing up, you don't show any emotion. You know, when you grow up in that type of home, they're not showing you emotion, the emotion that you need as a child, or as for me, as a child growing up, you're not showing that type of emotion that you're looking for.
Right.
And so you kind of hold a lot of things inside. So I don't know.
Right.
You look for it in other places, and I think that's what I did. So I look for the love through.
Go ahead.
You know, I kind of look for love in God. You know, it's the part I really didn't want to talk about. You know, I kind of look for love in wrong things. I did.
Right.
You know, I was young. I was about 15, and you know, I got into pornography and stuff at a young age.
Right.
Because my version, and you know, it sounds funny coming from a man to say that, because
right.
You know, you're a man. You know, you're supposed to be having sex. You know, you're supposed to have sex. You're supposed to, you know, your emotions, your hormones. You growing up, you're supposed to have sex with girls and stuff like that. And you know, I got into pornography at a real young age because my parents didn't talk to me, and in that type of structure, you don't ask questions. You're scared to even ask some certain questions that you should ask as a child. You don't ask them questions because you're supposed to be a man or growing into a man. Yeah. And so they didn't talk to me about certain things at that age, man. And I got into a lot of pornography and stuff like that. And I thought that's what love was. And you know, I remember my uncle laughing at me because I was a virgin. You know, and at that age, you know, they laugh at you. You're supposed to be tough. You're supposed to be having sex. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be the man, like, and they laugh at you about stuff like that. And you know, I kind of repressed and held a lot of things inside because I didn't have anybody to talk to at that age. You know, I don't know. I know this type of story helps people. I just didn't really want to share it with people. Right. You know what I mean? I didn't have sex with a female until I was 17 in high school, in 12th grade. Right. I didn't have nobody to really talk to me. So I was a quiet kid in school. I was always looked at as a quiet kid. Right. Like I said, I used to write a lot of letters because I didn't know how to express myself. And when I was angry, it would come out the wrong way because you taught to don't cry. You taught to be strong or be this man and that you really not. And I wasn't raised like a hard, you know, kid. You know what I'm saying? My dad they didn't teach us that way, but that structure of his military background kind of molded me. My mom worked in a maximum security prison. That structure kind of molded me to be a certain way. Right. I mean, so, you know, I didn't have certain conversations that I should have had with my parents because I was out of fear. I think I was probably more scared of them than anything.
Were you scared, like, if you would go up to them to talk even about that situation that you had, that they will probably spank you or?
No, it was just like, it was just awkward. You know, out of that fear, it's like an awkward feeling. Right. So you just don't say it because you're supposed to be like growing into a man. You just it's like awkward to talk to another man about something that's sensitive to you and how you feel about it, and they look at you strange, like, man, you're supposed to be a man. Right. You know, you're supposed to be tough. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be these things, but I didn't know any different at that age growing up. You know what I'm saying? So conversations like that maybe to me was awkward. Right. Because you know, you're supposed to be a man. Tell you to be hold your emotions in and stuff like that, but they don't counsel you. They don't tell you the after effects of doing that.
Right.
They don't tell you what happens when you don't have a conversation with someone. And honestly, to be honest with you, I was just at his house, but it was my uncle who really influenced me. At that age, I was 15, 16, 17, smoking weed at 15, growing, my mom would let me go out with him, and his counsel and advice to me was strong, be tough, we have sex, and, we drink and those things. So my influence was my father's brother.
Right.
And he was a bad influence over me. Bad influence. Now looking back, me and my brothers, we talk about that, how his influence over us was so negative. And because we didn't have somebody real to talk with about these situations, it kind of directed us in the wrong way, in the wrong path.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I had my own choice to choose whether or not I wanted to smoke and have sex and all of those things, but I didn't have someone. It was somebody I looked up to. See, that was it was somebody I looked up to who had influence over me and gave me bad advice.
Right.
My parents wasn't giving it to me. My dad was so strong, and he really wasn't home. He was I would say he was in my life, in my house, but he wasn't active in my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm learning now that's a big difference to be a father in somebody's life but not be active in their life. It's a big difference. I talked with my dad about a week ago, and he said the same thing. He said, I had sex, Teion, at 19. My father never told me anything.
Right.
He said he remember trying to have a conversation with his dad, and his dad said, I don't know.
Right.
And so my dad then talked with me because his dad didn't talk with him, and he kind of passed it on to me that same way. We never had conversation.
Oh,
we
wow.
never talked about anything related to sex and life and things of that nature,
Right.
So everything I learned either came from, and I'm being honest with you, a lot of things I learned about sex and came from either my uncle or either movies or through the music, hip hop, because I was really into that. I was a DJ.
Yeah.
So all my lessons about living and all of those things and expressing yourself came through raw hip hop, because I was into that. I was heavy into that type of music, and I went to Jersey.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up in Jersey at 17. I ended up in Jersey at 17. I was a kid. And then when I knew about, like you said, men have pride and they don't show their emotion. But by the time I got to Jersey, that was a whole nother animal for me.
Right.
They really didn't show no emotion. They really didn't show no emotion. I remember the first day I got to Jersey and I spoke to someone and they say, "What you looking at?" And I was like, "Oh snap, I wasn't used to that." Like my cousin said, "T, you from down south, so it's not the same."
Yeah.
It was more aggressive. Aggression. The aggression was different.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at me, what, you want to fight or something? Like,
yeah, it was really raw aggression,
I remember those days.
Now then compound that on what I learned from home, compound it on top of what I learned from my experiences from people in Jersey, and I lived there for 13 years, so it turned me into really not expressing myself.
Right.
If I was mad or angry, we fighting. Let's fight.
Right.
And now it made me turn into something that I really didn't grow up as, because like I said, my father didn't teach me how to be tough. But I kind of learned those things. You know what I'm saying? I learned it through the music, through my experiences being in Jersey and stuff like that. And I turned in, and even my family told me years later, like when I came home, like, "Man, I didn't raise you like that. That's not how you were when you left home." But they didn't realize that because they didn't influence me and pour into my life and kind of guide me.
Okay.
For example, one time I was cutting this guy hair, and he was hiking on me, and I was like, guy, like, dude, you better go ahead with that, you know, because I ain't into that type of stuff. Miss Nori,
Right.
I passed my clippers to the dude in the chair, and I turned around to the guy, and without even thinking about it, I did not even think about it. I punched him straight in his face.
In the barbershop?
In the barbershop, grabbed him by his head and was gonna run and jump out the window with him.
Wow.
The
Sounds
aggression.
To me like you had a lot of anger.
Yeah, I was angry. I was very, very angry. Very angry. I was a very angry person. Very. But I knew the way that I was living and carrying myself. I knew I was going to hell. Ain't nobody had it. You know. One thing I've realized over this time was I knew where I was going to hell. I knew I was going to hell. The way I lived my life and the way I carried myself, I knew I was going to hell. Nobody had to tell me where I was going, Ms. Nori.
Right.
And when that preacher started talking to me, the way I carried myself all those years and how the people I hurt over the years, because I held everything inside, I knew I needed help. I knew I needed change, and I knew somebody was on one day was going to kill me if I didn't change my direction. And so I accepted Jesus, man. When he was preaching to me, I knew it. I knew I needed help. I knew something had to be different. I was looking for something different. And when he was talking to me, I didn't see a man. I didn't hear him. All I heard was like God's voice, man, talking to me. And anybody that's probably listening, you know, I watched my father hit my mom a lot. You know, I watched him give her black eyes. I ain't talking about fighting. I'm talking about donuts. I'm talking about black eyes. She was going to work, putting on shades and stuff. At 15, to watch somebody that you look up to, you know, beat your mom and hit on her. It hurt, bro. At 15, looking down a long hallway, that happened, it shook me. It put me in a bad place, man. It made me feel some type of way towards my father because you love him, but it made me not really like him. So yeah, I love my pops, and later on, and you know, I'm 44 now, and I remember holding grudges against my dad for so many years because of that stuff, man. That eventually I was judging him because of what he did to my mom and what I saw him do to her. I held so many grudges against him for so many years. That, you know, later on in life, I remember me having to forgive my dad and had to talk to my dad and tell him that I didn't like what he did to my mom. You know what I'm saying? I loved him as a person, but just couldn't take it. I just couldn't take him as a man. You know, you respect them as a man, but you don't see it's different. You know what I'm saying? You see people different because you look up to them. You know what I mean? And I'm not always good at what I'm doing as a father because I even found myself not being active and doing the same thing I used to judge my dad for. So you know, even sometimes I wouldn't even be active in my own kids' life. And then somebody kind of check me on it and say, T, you know, it's good you there, but you're not active in their life. You know, like I take them to the park and play ball with them. I hang out with them. We build computers together. We do things together so I can influence them.
That's right.
And I can show them, and I can tell them, you ain't gotta be tough. Be yourself, man. Do you do your part? Do you? Because trying to be somebody else, you'll be faking all your life trying to be somebody else.
That's right.
You know, I want to influence my boys for the right purpose. So when they meet a female, they know how to respect them and keep their hands to themselves and know what's the right thing to do and really talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Really, I'm learning in my older man now to talk with people more talk with my kids more. Me and my dad, my cousins, my brothers, all of that. We talk now. We really talk like men. We, you know, I don't care. Like, one thing I realized, like, all this crying and stuff, like a man crying, tears. Like, I ain't soft because I'm crying. You know what I'm saying? What I think I realized that when you don't cry, when you don't cry, you really soft. I mean, talk to another man. You know, just because we men don't mean you don't cry. Your emotions is important. You know what I'm saying? And balance is important.
That's right.
You know, you could be super tough, or you could be, you know, okay. Some men think being soft, this generation think being soft is gay. But if you're not raised hard, then what else can you be but soft?
Right.
My kids are soft, but I didn't raise them hard. So, you know, but I would share with men is, don't be all that being ashamed to cry, because when you get into a relationship with a woman and you can't shed a tear with her, bruh, you know, the reality is you're going to be too hard. And then when you need to express yourself, you're going to express yourself the wrong way, and then you're going to get some bad results. That's right. So I do cry. I see my dad crying. He's 72 years old. My dad's 72 years old. He cried. He said, "T, I cried. We was all crying last week. Grown men crying. All of them." Wow. And the reality is, because we men, I talk to other men. I'd be like, "Look, you a man, bro. You a man's man. All that tear stuff, it don't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? Right. Your soul, that's your soul coming out. That's your emotions trying to come out and be healed, man. You know, let that out. Let go of that. You know, let go of all of that extra animosity that you might be holding inside. Even if you got to go by yourself sometimes and cry some tears, man, go do that. You know, go share some tears sometimes. Give us some people you know in a comfortable space, and you know that know you and understand you, and share some tears with them, because that's important. That, to me, that's important. That's right. If I can let it go and move forward and see another day, man, that's important to me.